Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. We're really glad you tuned into this, and you're going to want to share this because I guarantee you there are people that you know that are going to need to hear this message. So today we're going to be talking to Katie Krigbaum, who is my sister, and God just given her a tremendous gift and so much wisdom, particular in this area of dealing with adult children. And this particular episode, we're going to talk about how to position your heart and make sure that you're in the place to be able to hear God and to position yourself with your kids so that the welcome mat is out and they feel like they can come and talk to you. So get ready, get your pen and your paper out, take some notes. You're going to be super blessed. All right, so we're here with my sister, Katie Krigbaum, and just want to let you know officially that you are my most favorite sister. I don't have one that I like any more than you.
You don't have another one.
Yeah. That detail wasn't important. But for those that are listening to this, that may not know this, but Katie is. I've said it like this before, and you didn't really like it, but I still think it fits pretty good. I've kind of been the heart of the church. You've really been the brains of the church, which isn't 100% true because you have a lot of heart within our church, and then I also have a lot of brain power as well. But meaning that a lot of vision and things have come from me, but God's really shown you how to make that come alive, and so you have tremendous gifting in that area, and I love. Just how the Lord called us out of the womb, and then here we are. I'm 40, you're 43, and so I feel like we're just stepping into what the Lord really, what the Lord really has for us. And so you've been a huge support, to Liz and I in every sense of the word. And I love the fact that, just giving our listeners a little background, recently you said, my vision is in life is really at this point, anyways, is to see what God's put on you and Liz come to pass. And I don't think we could ever. You can't buy that. You can't find it. You can't buy that. God has to put that inside of people, and so we don't really have words to say thanks.
Yeah.
And but with all that said, you have a lot of revelation, but you have a particular revelation that really fits with marriage and family, and of course, this is called Family by Design. This podcast, and so we try to kind of stick in that vein. And so in particular, you've had, and you could just go into as much details as you feel like you can, or you can't, because Liz and I do that too when we're dealing with conversations with kids. We want to be able to help have as much transparency to make it plain and simple to people, but I also want to protect our kids too. But with just as much transparency, you can share about this topic of unsolicited advice. And just a little backstory, I think you were reading in a book, if I remember right, and you have a daughter who's 22, I think, almost 22, right? And then I think Seth is 18. 19. Yep. Okay, so you're right. You've just come out of the teenage years, and you're going into adult years, and your relationship has changed drastically. And I feel like you just have tons of wisdom to speak in this area, but in particular with unsolicited advice. So speak to that a little bit and just talk to us about how the Lord showed you that and what that's looked like with your kids. Yeah,
that's good. So basically, when our oldest one was getting ready to leave and go to college, she was in her senior year, and our communication was not where it needed to be. And I began to go back to the Lord and say, she's getting ready to leave our house, and this has to look different. And I knew also she's getting ready to leave our house and go into a secular university. And there's a lot of challenge that everybody knows as a parent, and fear, actually, that can come up on us as parents. And some of it, rightfully so, not that we should ever be in a place with fear with the Lord, but there's an awareness when our kids are getting ready to launch and leave our homes, and a covering that we've pursued in the Lord to place over our kids. They're getting ready to go step out into things in the world, and the things we've trained them up in, and the skills we've provided, it's all about to be tested for them on another level. And as parents, we have to be able to continue to speak into our kids' lives as they emerge into the world.
Right.
Yeah.
And we knew, my husband and I both knew, Mark and I both knew that the conversations were not where they needed to be. Parenting teenagers is difficult, and that's not specifically what this conversation's about, but that's a whole nother conversation in itself, but all can be done in the Lord. And so we just went back to the Lord and began to have conversations with the Lord about how to begin to shift conversations with our kids as they're getting ready to leave our house. And so it began with a heart posture change, which is what's so absolutely radically important for every parent, is that when we're hitting a wall, to get before the Lord and say, these are the children that you've entrusted to me, and then we've given them back to you. And so I therefore hold the wisdom of God on the inside of me for everything that they're going to need. And so when there's a communication breakdown, it starts with parents first.
So I want to break in real quick,
Yeah.
and I don't want to take too much time here because you have a lot of good stuff to say, but I think that you just made a really important point, and that is that you have, or we have as parents, we have, and I forget exactly how you say it, but just we have what it is that they need.
Mm-hmm.
God's given us, He's placed inside of us, or we at least have the availability to go to the Lord and get what our kids need.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
so that to me is the place to where we start, so we can see our kids, struggling or needs understanding in this area. And that's from, diapers to all the way till they become adults. We can see, we need to parent them and help them. And so we first have to go, we have to be the parent.
Yeah.
And I think we have to be able to identify, but then also go to the Lord and say, God, here I am. Show me what I need to know to give to them, but then also how to be able to give it to them. I think all those questions are good, which just points to like a heart position before the Lord.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's
I felt like that was so, and I'm sure you could go on that for hours, because you've had, of course, you being my sister, and we've had lots of conversations where you've been like, man, we're dealing with this, we're trying to figure this out, and you stayed before the Lord during that time.
Yeah, and so we still do. So we're living in fruit right now of years of staying before the Lord, with Kayla being almost 22 now, and just seeing the massive work that the Lord has done in our relationship, very specifically with her over the years, is an entirely beautiful testimony all to itself. But it began with a posture heart on my part, on Mark's part, and the Lord began to deliver words to us to hold on to for the next season. And this is so important. This piece right here, that's so important. So in this, something that ended up happening was I was seeking the Lord about just what the next journey looked like. And I came across a book that nobody pointed out to me. It was literally by the Spirit of God. It was somebody I wasn't even familiar with. But it's Jim Burns is his name. And so he's got a lot of great literature out, actually has done family counseling for a lot of years, just a man of God. And so he wrote a book it's called Doing Life with Your Adult Children, Keeping the Welcome Mat Out and Your Mouth Shut.
Wow. Wow.
So that right there grabbed my attention.
We could stop right there,
Right.
and I think a lot of people listening would be like, oh, wow, I need to change some things.
Yes.
Yeah. Because it really does change when you go. Of course, our oldest has just turned 17, and that shift is beginning to happen to where it goes from, we're parenting you daily and helping you make decisions to now we're just here to support you.
Yes.
And we're available to you.
Yeah.
The welcome mat out kind of thing.
Yeah.
So tell us about how that really changed.
So some key things, and which is kind of the primary thing that we're talking about right now is about unsolicited advice. But Jim actually pointed out several things in the book, and that's one of the key things was that unsolicited advice for what he calls emerging adults. But I would say this is true all the way to adult land for all of us. But an emerging adult is that picture of the kid who's just leaving home. They still have a level of dependency on parents for safety net things, probably very financially kind of things as they're learning how to journey. But their learning is the important thing, and they're stepping out, and we've prepared them, and we want this season to come upon them. But in communication with them, though, he pointed out the fact that unsolicited advice is often viewed as criticism. And the Lord very specifically has dealt with me on that, actually personally about myself and about criticism and operating in a critical spirit. and has shown me some things personally about myself. And so I began to go to that conversation with the Lord and said, okay, what does this look like to begin to shift this? And another great thing that Jim talked about was seeking to understand your kids' culture. So a lot of times as parents, we want to just interject when we can see something going on and say, well, you need to, and this needs to shift, and you need to do this and whatnot. But there's truths that we hold that we definitely want to have imparted, but also their situations and circumstances and what they're experiencing are unique to themselves in the moments that they're in. And so the reality was now Kayla was leaving and going into a college experience that while I understand college, I don't understand the school she's in or the things she's studying or the things that generationally the kids are dealing with right now, just an extreme overtness of a lot of ungodliness. We're all seeing that. And so Jim just talked about like us repositioning to seek to understand.
Yeah.
And so that's so important. So as I began to seek to understand her, instead of just pushing my agenda
Right.
and the things that I wanted to say and what I was seeing and knew needed to be shifted, I began to seek to understand. And what began to evolve and has turned into a beautiful thing now at this point in our relationship with things of God now. But at that time, it began to shift into her understanding my deep love for her in this season of life that she was in, my high care factor for everything that she was experiencing. And what's being created now between her and I specifically is when she's hitting things and she understands that I'm for her, that she's actually coming and seeking me out.
That's right.
And that's the thing that parents want to see happen.
It was kind of like with you seeking to understand her was probably a way of putting the welcome mat out.
That's it.
Because she felt honored and welcomed.
Totally.
Yeah.
And safe to be vulnerable where you're not going to criticize her. So
That's right.
What does it look like to seek to understand? Can you give us some maybe specifics, like what that looks like?
Yeah, so conversations that she's having, you know, I think it's key for us to just when we're dealing with people in general and then in this topic with our kids, listen to what they're saying.
So you're listening.
You're being a listener.
Yeah.
Listen to what they're saying. What was important to her? What was the day being filled up? What was happening with professors, with relationships, with activities she was involved in, with what work things were looking like? What was going on with her? And then as she would begin to explain things to me, to set down judgment completely of what I thought. She
because she probably said things that you didn't agree with.
Absolutely, and every parent's going to hear that.
Right.
Our kids are going to say things that we don't agree with.
Right.
But what's so important is when we can identify by listening to them, where are you? Then we begin to let the Spirit of God operate on the inside of us of how to speak to that. But it's through this loving place where if they're already opening up conversation of what's important to them and our kids know that we care about what's important to them, all of their experiences, and validating. This is important. To validate doesn't mean that we're agreeing. It means that we're acknowledging that something is going on right now with you, and I care about whatever it is. So say anything that you want me to, or anything that you want to say to me, and for parents to stay in a completely non-reactionary mode.
Yeah.
This is so important. And just say, it's gonna be okay. Roll it all out to me. And so I like to even use this term that when my kids have said things to me that I knew like there's a God truth that wasn't presenting in the conversation that they were having with me, that really I just started taking it as an opportunity to see maybe where the enemy had been depositing lies and where truth needed to be revealed. And that positioned me of how to pray.
That's right.
As a mom over that thing, but not to criticize. And so as we just began in this journey and she saw my love and over what she's doing, my being proud over what she's doing, that she began to realize my mom is for me. My parents are for me.
So then what would you say to somebody, because with Kayla, obviously, of course, she's, my niece, so I know the details, but, and obviously she was going to school and she went to school and she was just brilliant and went through fast and just did an incredible job and got good grades. And she was doing a good thing.
Yeah.
But there could be some parents that might be dealing with children who are not doing a good thing, that they're not really pursuing something. Because I think you can have people that are pursuing good things, but still need some direction, which I think largely was where Kayla was at.
Yep.
But then you could have some kids,
Yep.
parents that have kids that they're not doing good things, and also obviously need some direction. So what would you say in that sense? Because you couldn't necessarily be approving of what they're doing if they're out. I mean, they could be on drugs. They could be, just living a lifestyle that's just, totally in opposition. And I think there's a difference between needing some direction to get set on the right path versus going the complete opposite direction. So speak into that a little bit.
Yeah. So a couple things I think about is that kids need to there always needs to be at least one adult. And if it's both parents, it's even better. They have to have someone who's always almost a ridiculous amount of cheer for them, of celebration for them over their life. And when you just stop and think about that and think, if I'm not doing that for my child, who is?
Who is?
Right.
It's really a parent's position to say, like, I am going to pour out like a celebration of your life up on your life for however long you live up on this earth and me. That's what I'm going to
So
do
you're
for you.
celebrating not necessarily what they're doing,
No.
good or bad, but you're celebrating
It's them.
It's them.
It's a deep love for them. And what we want for our kids when there's things going on that shouldn't be going on, God is like always drawing people unto himself, and he's operating through parents to draw children unto him, to be taught and positioned, for them to be positioned to be taught by the Lord. And so it's so key for us as parents to maintain a consistency of love and unconditional love towards our kids. And so there's another place we can go into. There's absolute consequences that happen. There's boundaries that happen, especially when you're doing life with adult children and how it's affecting like everybody else around. So I'm not necessarily speaking to the fact that those things aren't real, but at the heart of us as parents towards our children, when you look at the story of the prodigal son, the father was looking for him a long way off.
Right.
Why? Because the father kept his heart positioned in hope and expectation. And then we all know that story of how he received the son back in, wasn't just in a place of servitude, but was a place of sonship. And so this is so key for us as parents, that whatever our kids are going through, that our kids have to know our love for them. And we can tell truth in love, even when there's consequences and boundary setting and stuff. So those conversations can go on, but this is a picture of, even in the difficult things that we know need to be shifted, I'll just say two things. There's a posture part for a parent that has to stay before the Lord for the sake of their kids. It has to. That hope and expectation and love unconditionally, like the Father has, stays there, because parents can get hard in their heart. We can get bitter, resentful, frustrated, and want to cut the cord. We see that go on in the earth. We see that of even parents who profess to have relationship with the Lord cut a cord to their kids. And I'll just even say that even when boundaries have to be set because of things your kids are going through, we never get to cut the cord of our heart between our children. We don't get to turn away. We stay before the Lord with them.
So I would say one that does that is one that really doesn't know God's love.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They might have an intellectual sense of it, but they don't really know it, because God doesn't do that to us.
Yeah, he doesn't do that to us. Thank God that he doesn't. He pursues us. His grace is deep and wide, and his mercy is deep and wide and long for us. And so he expects us as parents to display that same thing towards our children, And so then this goes back to parents in that season where your kids aren't doing what it is. This is the other part of what went on in so much with Kayla and I's relationship, is prayer before the Lord. Like parents, whether your kids, you feel like your kids are running in the direction you hope they would be running, or there's things that need to be repositioned in them. And maybe even you're like, wow, we're hitting a wall over and over again in this area. Parents never should underestimate the power of praying parents before the Lord to begin to hear from the Lord about what the Lord is saying about your kids and declare those things.
And so your prayer probably wasn't, Lord, she's making my life so difficult. Can you help her so that it's no longer affecting me in a bad way?
Oh yeah, no.
It was because I think sometimes it is, but I think sometimes when you're frustrated and when you're desperate, that can be what the prayer looks like, because all of a sudden you're like, this is affecting me. This is hurting me. This doesn't feel good. And we can turn it back onto ourselves instead of saying, actually, this is not about me directly. This is about them. So, I mean, I think the greatest and one of the most easiest things to do is to say, God, what do you say about them? And how can I partner with you in proclaiming that?
Yeah, that's right.
And then that removes you out of the picture. You're just the vessel in which, you're going to move forward with the Lord. So I think we have to be so careful not to take things back onto ourselves and make it be about us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so good. Just in Luke 1 alone, we see a picture of things going on with Mary when the angels visited her. Jesus is now about to be, she's about to conceive the Son of God. And then there's also Zacharias in that same chapter. And there's a couple pictures going on with parents towards children that are about to be born, so towards John the Baptist and Jesus. And so Mary took in the things that were being said to her, and it was accounted unto her being blessed because she believed what the Lord said.
That's right.
About the Son of God. But she had to position herself as a mother who was going to carry him. And then we have the funny side kind of Zacharias in the same chapter, who literally didn't believe what the Lord was saying about John the Baptist. And so the Lord shut his mouth.
Yeah.
So that John could not declare out the wrong things.
Right.
Like I believe that was just the mercy of God upon John and what the Lord was saying about John to Zacharias that he actually didn't hear. He couldn't believe it yet. And so he shut his mouth. But then when Zacharias released what John's name was going to be after he was born, a spirit of prophecy began to be released from Zacharias. And so these are great pictures for us to look at as parents about our children, even at the point of them being knitted together as moms in our wombs. The Lord has things he is declaring and saying about them. And will we agree with what the Lord says?
That's right.
Will we agree? And we have to, the way to use, going back to this thing of criticism, the way to operate an opposite of a critical spirit. The Lord specifically said this to me. How you operate opposite of a critical spirit or out of criticism is you align with what I say.
That's right. That's so good.
It actually is that simple.
Because he's never critical.
He's never critical.
That's pretty
Critical.
simple.
He is full of life-giving power all of the time. So as I begin in my prayer life to declare out, ask the Lord what he's saying about Kayla, things I already knew, but then also for that season of time where she was away from us and there was just so much going on, I began to declare out. And Jim talked about this other important thing that, there's this place where we've trained our children up and there's skills within them. And as they're journeying through life, then as we pray and we put them before the Lord, we also need to recognize the fact that even when they're not doing exactly what it is, that there's a pain threshold that they will reach where they will want a reposition to happen. And in that place of repositioning, there is skills and training within them.
That's good.
And by the Spirit of God, those things will begin to rise up, to see course correction begin to happen. And we've seen that. We've seen that happen, and it's beautiful.
It's so good. Well,
and you've trusted the Lord.
Absolutely.
And you, not that you took your hands off, but you didn't try to control.
I stopped controlling.
Yeah.
I trusted
the Lord. Yeah.
So there is so much more to this that we really didn't even get into unsolicited advice. So we're part 2. We're going to get into that more and be able to really nail down some of these things. But this is so good a leading up just about how to position your heart and as a parent. And so amazing stuff. So thank you for sharing this. And so we're going to do this again, and we're going to get into part 2 about really what it means to be a parent that, how do we say it, doesn't give heed to unsolicited advice?
Yeah, don't give it. Don't
give
give
unsolicited advice. Don't give it. Yeah,
There's criticism.
Right.
So,
there you go. So awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening in on this conversation. We hope this has and will continue to encourage you in your marriage and family. Don't forget to download and comment and share this episode. You can check out Ward Ministries at wardmen.org. If you have any questions, please email us at info@wardmen.org. Keep your eye out weekly for our latest conversation on marriage and family.